Title: The Billionaire was about to jump off the bridge, until a poor girl said something and changed everything. The night was cold and quiet, the kind of stillness that makes every thought sound louder. On the edge of a bridge overlooking the dark river below, a man in a tailored gray suit stood alone. His name was Richard Hale, one of the richest men in the country, a self-made billionaire known for his luxury empire, his charities, and his perfect life. But none of that mattered now. His hands trembled as he looked down at the water, the reflection of city lights blurring through his tears. No one would have guessed that the man who had everything was ready to let it all go. Just hours earlier, Richard had been in his penthouse, surrounded by glass walls and silence. The phone call that shattered him had come from the hospital. His wife Claire had lost her battle with cancer. She had been his only anchor, his reason to keep going. The doctor's words were still echoing in his head when he grabbed his coat and keys and drove until the city lights dimmed behind him. He ended up here on this bridge where he and Claire used to watch the sunrise years ago, back when they had nothing but dreams. Now he was a man drowning in success but starving for meaning. He whispered, "I can't do this anymore." His voice broke against the wind. He had spent decades building towers, buying companies, and donating millions to causes he barely understood, but he had forgotten how to live. "What's the point?" he muttered. "What's the point of it all when there's no one left to share it with?" As he took a step closer to the edge, a small voice came from behind him. "Sir, please don't jump." Startled, Richard turned. Standing a few feet away was a young girl no older than 10, with tangled hair and a worn-out pink jacket that looked 2 sizes too small. She held a small paper bag in her hand. "Go home," Richard said hoarsely. "You shouldn't be here." The girl didn't move. Her shoes were muddy, her cheeks red from the cold. "I can't," she said softly. "My home isn't safe tonight." Richard frowned. "Where are your parents?" "My mom's sick," she said, clutching the bag tighter. "She's at the shelter. I was getting her dinner from the diner, but the man said I didn't have enough money, so I just bought some bread." She held out the bag as if offering proof. "It's not much, but it's all I could do." Richard stared at her, this fragile, shivering child who had every reason to give up, and yet she hadn't. "You shouldn't be walking around at night alone," he murmured. "I'm okay," she said. "But you're not." Her words hit him harder than anything he'd heard all night. The little girl stepped closer, eyes wide with worry. "You look like you're hurting," she said. "But if you jump, you'll make someone else hurt too. I know what it's like to lose someone. My daddy, he did what you're about to do." Her voice cracked. "He thought we'd be better off without him. But we weren't, we needed him. Even when he had nothing, we still needed him." Richard froze, every breath catching in his chest. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It's okay," she said. "But please don't make another kid feel like I do every day. Don't go away." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The river below seemed to whisper something only they could hear. A reminder that life, no matter how broken, still moved forward. The girl sat down on the bridge rail, swinging her legs. "You know," she said after a while, "I think people don't really die when they leave. They stay if we keep doing what they loved." Richard turned to her, tears glistening in his eyes. "What did your dad love?" he asked. "He loved to draw," she said with a faint smile. "He said he wanted to paint something beautiful one day, something that made people feel happy." She pulled a crumpled sketch from her pocket and showed it to him. It was a drawing of a sunrise over a bridge, and this bridge. The lines were rough, but the feeling was pure. "I come here sometimes to look at the sky. It's the only place that feels close to him." Richard felt a warmth he hadn't felt in months, maybe years. He looked down at the water again, but this time not with despair. Instead, he saw reflections of light, movement, and possibility. The world hadn't stopped. He had. He turned to the girl. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said. "Emma," he repeated softly. "That's a beautiful name." He took off his coat and draped it around her shoulders. "You shouldn't be out here freezing." Emma looked up at him, puzzled. "Are you going to be okay now?" Richard exhaled, his breath turning to mist. "I think maybe I will be." That night, instead of jumping, Richard walked Emma back to the shelter. The building was old, its paint peeling, but the people inside greeted her with warmth. When the shelter manager recognized Richard Hale, her eyes widened. The billionaire was standing in her doorway with a homeless child. "Is she safe here?" Richard asked gently. The woman nodded. "We do our best. But we're short on beds, food, and medicine." Richard looked around. Tired mothers holding babies, elderly men wrapped in blankets, kids huddled around a single heater. For the first time, he didn't see statistics or charity cases. He saw people, living, breathing stories like Emma's. And in that moment, he knew what Claire would have wanted him to do. Over the next few days, everything changed. Richard returned to his company, but he wasn't the same man. He quietly began a foundation, the Sunrise Project, dedicated to helping families like Emma's. He funded shelters, education, and mental health support, focusing not on profit, but on purpose. He visited the shelter often, bringing books, food, and clothes, always asking for Emma first. Months later, on a spring morning, he stood once again on the same bridge. The city was bathed in golden light, the river calm and full of life. Beside him stood Emma, holding a paintbrush and a small canvas. "You ready?" she asked, grinning. Richard smiled. "Let's make something beautiful." Together they painted. The same sunrise her father had once dreamed of, now shining brighter than ever. People passing by stopped to watch, unaware that the man who had once wanted to end his life had been saved by a little girl with nothing but kindness and courage. As the sun climbed higher, Richard felt something stir deep within him, not grief, not guilt, but peace. He looked at Emma and said quietly, "You saved me that night." Emma smiled, dabbing her brush in yellow. "No, you saved yourself. I just reminded you what it feels like to matter." Richard nodded, his heart full. "You did more than that. You reminded me what it means to live." They stood in silence, the painting glowing in the morning light, a symbol of second chances, of how one small act of compassion can rewrite the ending of someone's story. And somewhere, in the warmth of that sunrise, it felt like Claire was smiling too. Moral, sometimes, the person who saves you isn't a hero in shining armor. It's someone who has nothing to give except love, faith, and a few simple words that remind you life is still worth living.